Welcome to the Content Podcast, conversations with Silicon Valley's creatives. I'm Daniel Garcia, your host and the cultivator of Content Magazine, published by SV Creates.
Hello, this is Jonathan.
Today we talk with Jonathan Rhys Williams. He's the executive director at the Tabard Theater.
I actually need to ask a favor.
Okay.
I got bad news from the county this morning.
Oh, no.
We've been told that we have to shut down.
Oh, my gosh.
We're not going to be able to go with our live stream this weekend. And
Oh, man.
as much as it would probably be a really great idea to have this conversation
Sure.
and try to actually work things out, and I certainly want to. I'm wondering if we can delay,
Sure.
maybe reschedule for a couple of days or something like that.
Sure.
I'm swamped trying to even just make sure that I'm able to pivot and
Yeah.
cancel rehearsals, etc.
Yeah, that's no problem, man. We can do it. And then we could talk about that, and then hopefully you have a new plan or something to go. I'm so sorry. I am really disappointed, frustrated to hear that. I know that because I think what I heard that you guys were looking to kind of get kind of like recognized as a studio or something like that, so that would make the live broadcast technically within the letter of the law or something.
Yeah, that was exactly right. That's how we have been operating. We actually ran one production, Looking Over the President's Shoulder. We had 11 performances of that show. And we did it with a robotic camera setup, but we did it very safely. We thought that we were completely in compliance. And what we were doing was saying we are not a live theater right now. We are a live streaming studio.
Yeah.
And so we were looking at the rules that apply to television stations. And that's how we thought we were going to find a way to move through all of this. And subsequently, since that live stream, we were contacted by the county, and I've made the arguments back and forth. The decision officially came down today, and I asked absolutely point blank. I said, is this a cease and desist order? And I was told by the county attorney's office that yes,
Oh my gosh.
this is a cease and desist. You cannot operate at this time. So
That's crazy.
I think if we went forward at this point, still, because I still believe we're in compliance, actually, because if we're a television studio, just like, news stations and things like that, we're doing everything according to the letter of the law. Yeah. But if we move forward at this point, I think I could actually, get fined or worse.
Yeah.
So
better to hold off. Yeah. Well, exactly. I'm sorry about that. And I hope it can get resolved. I know you're putting in all kinds of crazy hours, blood, sweat, and tears and anguish over it. So, so just, I guess what you could do is I'll just email you and we could figure out a time and we can talk about, the sooner the better, because I do want people to hear kind of like this transition, what's going on, this journey that you guys are in. I think it's important to kind of help rally some people because I don't think people understand.
Yes.
So, maybe even next week we could look at some times.
No, I would absolutely love to do it as soon as possible, but even more on point. I was just thinking that I just don't have the brain space right now, as much as it would be a great idea to have. I do want to get the word out there and let people know that the arts are. We're always in a precarious position. We're in a very precarious position now, and trying to work with local government and just being told no.
Yeah.
But the point that you bring up is, what I'm doing right now is trying to figure out what are we going to be able to do. And we're trying to work out a deal right now with Tom McHenry and the ownership of the San Pedro market to see if we can actually do an outdoor version of this same thing.
Right.
So hopefully in a week, I'll be able to tell you exactly what our plan is and how we are going to try to muscle through all of this.
So, at the technical point of view, it's because it's a theater. And so the moment that you do live streaming from a theater, is that the gist of it? I just don't understand. Because it seems like people are doing live streaming of all kinds of stuff, right?
Yes.
All the time, everywhere.
Yeah, it's the fact, and we still could live stream over, Zoom or a platform like Zoom. where individuals were able to be in the safety of their own homes. It's the fact that we're trying to bring a small group of people together in the theater itself and actually do a performance
Right.
that is live streamed from that stage.
Okay.
We get it. The way that we read the live theater rules really seems to be about having audience in the room, which we get. We're not asking to have audience in
Right.
the room. We're
Yeah.
just asking to be recognized like many other businesses, which the way we read the rules is that means we can't have any more than one person per 250 square foot of airspace,
Right.
which for the size of our theater means that we can have 12 people in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of works out to about 8 actors and 4 technicians in order to be able to actually produce a live stream.
Yeah.
So that's how we were moving forward with the plans of opening Arsenic and Old Lace on Friday, and now we're pivoting, we're shifting.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and the thing that I heard today, which was the only new information, is that and this is the interpretation of the county attorney's office, who was in the Zoom call today. But according to this person, the head of the health department for the county, who has actually put together the shelter in place rules that we are all being governed by,
Mm-hmm.
is under the belief that actors and singers, and we're not doing singing. I understand actually more the argument for singers, but
Sure.
they're claiming that actors are also in this category because we project, because we're
There's more
using
spittle.
our voices in a particular way.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally, that we aerosolize
Yeah.
our, the stuff coming out of our bodies becomes more airborne than people at a restaurant or people in any other situation.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's what they're holding on to. That's the one place where I'm like, well, I don't necessarily agree with that. I would love to have some more uh, hard science behind that.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
can't argue it either.
Maybe you could do a
You know,
production
that's
that's
the one.
arsenic and lace and mask, or shield.
Right. Or just do the entire thing as interpretive mime dance.
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah.
No spoken word.
Yeah.
We'll use sign language to communicate everything.
Or you can create
No, I don't know.
a fifth wall, which is the plexiglass between each
Right.
actor. Oh.
No, so the thing that we're doing next, or what we were going to do next, I'm definitely planning on doing it now because I have a really interesting thought about it, is we're going to do we're already pivoting towards doing things as radio plays,
Oh
because
yeah.
one of the other rules, if we were able to do the live stream, is we still have to keep social distance.
Yeah.
So the idea of, doing Romeo and Juliet and
Yeah.
having the
Yeah.
two lovers, right, embracing each other, that's off that we know we can't do things like that.
Yeah.
Um, but so we're doing things as radio plays.
Yeah. That's great.
People had individual microphones, where there's still some physicality on the stage. People are still in costume, so there's a visual interest.
Yeah.
But the idea is that we keep that distance. Well, for War of the Worlds, which is going to be the next one,
Awesome. Yeah.
I was already planning on putting people in like 4x4 plexiglass isolation booths,
Yeah. Sound boothish type
just
thing. Yeah.
because. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
thought the aesthetic of that could be really interesting, and then play that up inside of the drama of it.
Yeah.
Now I'm even pivoting further because I actually I want to rewrite the whole thing and instead of it being the Martians, I want it to be the right wing Republican agendaists that are coming up out of the ground and trying to take over the Earth. Um,
Yeah.
if there's a subtle way that I can imply that inside of our stage version, I think that could be really interesting.
Yeah. They could
But
just wear the hats.
right.
Yeah.
Make Mars great again.
Yeah. Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah. All
Oh
right.
my gosh, that would be insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, cool. That's
Anyway,
actually, I think that's a great idea. I love actually seeing those old radio, programs where they got their hand on their ear and they're talking and they're acting it out. That's so fun. I think even when you do animation, right, and they show the clips of Kevin Hart, as he's animating,
oh
or
right, yeah.
that's kind of fun. That could be a really fun presentation. So, yeah, cool.
Yeah, well, that was definitely the way that we were going, because we're doing whatever we can to try to abide by the rules, but still one, create art because that's what we do, and we believe that it's good for the mental health and spiritual health of the community,
Yeah.
as well as our artists.
Yeah.
But also, the end of the day, just because we're sheltering in place doesn't mean I don't have to pay my rent.
Yeah.
We still have
Yeah.
bills to pay, and I'm trying to keep people on payroll and make sure that they're able to cover their bills. And yeah, with this new roadblock that's being thrown up, I think there's some real danger of artists. We're already in a vulnerable place.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm just not sure how we're going to be able to survive this, but we'll figure out a way.
Yeah.
We'll keep fighting the
Awesome.
fight.
So, I have to tell you, so what I do is actually I have this. I always have a backup recording. So I actually was recording what we were doing. Um, could we just put
No
a
problem.
small little tidbit of this out? Because actually, I had you slated to go up tomorrow because I really wanted it to go out. So,
Uh-huh.
or could I mean, would you be able to? Would you want to talk just for 15 minutes? Could you do and I could add the real recording? Like I'll hit
Yeah,
the real
sure.
recording. You know, just because
Yeah,
I feel
sure.
like,
Let's do it. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I just feel like it's so timely that, and
It
I
is. I mean, it absolutely is. It absolutely is. So yeah, let's do it. Let's just do it.
okay.
Yes.
All right. Awesome. Good. I'm sorry to kind of push you on it stuff. So I'm sorry. I'm just I'm
No,
really thinking.
let's do it. We're in it now. Let's just do it.
Yeah. Well, I
Let's
was
try
kind
to
of
roll
thinking.
the full.
Yeah. I kind. Okay. Let's go. Well, let's go for the whole thing. Okay.
Hello, this is Jonathan.
Today we talk with Jonathan Rhys Williams. He's the executive director at the Tabard Theater. Hey, Jonathan. This is Daniel. Thanks for taking time to talk to me today.
Oh, hey Daniel, it's good to talk with you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So right now, I know as we're recording this, and this is going to go out tomorrow. You've been dealing with some stuff with doing recorded performances and live performances that you've been kind of putting out, and so the county has just kind of said that you have to stop doing what you're doing, right? So can you kind of, before we get into even like your history coming to Tabard Theater, what was the phone call, the Zoom that you were just on today?
Yeah, sure. Let me give you a little bit of lead up of how we got
Yeah.
to where we are now. Yeah, I'm relatively new at Tabard Theater Company. I joined on as the executive artistic director officially in July. I've been working for the company pretty much this whole year. Came on back in January, but officially took over leadership in July 1. Of course, that's in the middle of the COVID shutdown.
Great time to take on a new
Yeah.
position. Yeah.
Oh boy, yeah. I missed that question in the job interview. I don't know how I didn't hear that this was going to be part of what I had to work with, but
Yeah.
here we are. And so, really, really quickly inside of the shutdown, we were looking for ways that we were going to be able to continue to provide the work out into the world, both continue to support our artists, but also, for the mental health, the spiritual health, if you will, of the people of Santa Clara County. We
Yeah.
really believe that arts is important in that way, and our constituents need that. Netflix is not enough. We also need to
Right.
have other good live arts. So we decided that we were going to pivot to a live streaming model, and we looked at the COVID rules that were being put out, in particular, a shelter in place order that was put out by the county health department on July 2nd. And our understanding of that, and working with actually information lines with the county, etc., was that we would be able to produce as a live streaming studio,
Yeah.
that in-person theater was not allowed at this time, and that makes sense. Having an audience in front of actors is just too dangerous right now. Gathering the public is too difficult to control, trace route, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
There's just too much to worry about. So we went ahead and we got some donated funds from the Silicon Valley Community Foundation. We put that together with our own, blood, sweat, and tears, and we
Yeah.
created a 3-camera robotic live streaming studio inside of the theater. We completely converted the theater over to a live stream studio.
Yeah.
That includes like removing the seating. We actually pulled all the chairs out, restoring those down in the basement. We've
Wow.
created distancing between the technicians that run the shows. Normally, they'd be kind of huddled together in the tech booth.
Right.
We've actually pulled those stations apart so that the lighting technician and the sound technician and the camera technician can have safe distances. And we had a show back in March called "Looking Over the President's Shoulder" with James Creer, fantastic actor, um, which was a one-person show. And so we thought that's a perfect platform
Yeah.
to bring back. It's a perfect product to bring back. We know what we're doing. We had people that had tickets for performances that were canceled, so we thought we'll bring this back. We'll give back to the community in this way.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. We ran 11 performances at the end of July and the beginning of August. It was well received. We had a tremendous number of technical issues that we had to resolve, and we put a tremendous amount of time, effort, and cash dollars into
Yeah.
making that work. And again, it was our understanding at that time that we were completely in compliance.
Yeah.
Um, After those 3 weekends of shows were complete, we got a message from the county attorney's office, actually from the Office of Emergency Business Affairs, I believe is the title. I might be getting that wrong exactly.
Wow.
But letting us know that there had been a complaint of some kind,
Huh.
and that was leading to them needing to do a follow-up phone call and get some clarification about how we were doing business and what that meant. Basically, what I thought at that time was just, hey, tell us what you're doing so that we can maybe help support you. We were
Right.
looking for
Yeah.
clarification. We
Yeah.
were we were hoping that the county would say, yeah, no, this is great, but maybe you want to think about adding additional hand washing stations or something like that.
Yeah.
We were looking to have that kind of partnership with the county. Unfortunately, that has led to approximately the last month of phone calls back and forth trying to get absolute clarification. So all of that culminated in a phone call, well, actually a Zoom conversation that happened this morning with Dave Cortese, the county supervisor Dave Cortese, former mayor Tom McHenry, who's become a tremendous supporter of ours and has really helped us open doors and get these conversations to happen, and a couple of folks from the county attorney's office. And we were told pretty much straight up, no, you cannot continue in this way. I
Yeah.
believe that the concerns are about actors. I mean, basically, it comes down to having a certain number of people inside of an enclosed space. We thought that we were in compliance, but they're really standing behind the idea that we are not able to classify ourselves, I guess, as a live streaming studio. But the rules that are governing live theater are the ones that we have to look to. And
Okay.
those rules are pretty clear that right now live theater is just not allowed.
So,
Um,
so as according to like the way the the law or the ordinances are, so you can have a retail space that has a certain number of people per square footage inside of it. You could have because now they're opening it up, I think, in even to some indoor dining, right? And it's going to be limited to the space and the number of people. And then
I believe that's correct.
you can have a so you can have a studio like a TV recording studio with same thing, keeping social distance and all that kind of stuff. But since
Yeah.
you are a theater, right? You're not necessarily like a production studio. You fall underneath the guidelines of live theater, which they're under the assumption that people are close together, there's audience, and actors are projecting. Right? Is that kind of like the idea that it's a different category?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Right.
And
Okay.
we're, continuing to try to understand exactly how these rules are playing out. And first and foremost, we absolutely understand and want
Sure.
to comply. We're not trying to do things that are going to endanger people.
Yeah, of
We
course not.
believe that we have a safe working model that, as you were just pointing out, is comparable to, if not exceeding, the health precautions that other businesses across the county are adhering to.
Right.
You're I'm not sure exactly when indoor dining is happening, but I think that is part of the new rollout.
Right.
But I also look at things like churches.
Yeah.
Religious organizations are allowed to stream their services on Sundays.
Yeah.
Seems to me very, very similar. It's a small group of individuals that are in front of cameras and a
Yeah.
small group of technicians which are recording and then sending out to their constituency.
Yeah.
I also look at, like I mentioned before, television studios.
Yeah.
Television studios are allowed to, local news broadcasts, etc. Those things are being allowed. And then it even just dawned on me this morning, the NBA is playing basketball games.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if they're worried about people being indoors and aerosolizing the the what's
Yeah.
coming out of their lungs, there's obviously there's just different rules for different groups, and
Right. Yeah.
the arts are getting the short end of the stick right now, and we are a valuable part of the community, not just in the service that we create, the stories that we tell, the way that we bring people together, but also economically. We support,
Yeah.
not a huge number of individuals just at Tabard, but when you look across our region and you look across the state and across the country, the arts employ thousands and thousands of people, and all of those people are unemployed right now.
Yeah.
They're waiting for something to change, but very quickly we are starting to become a very vulnerable population that is going to have a hard time surviving this, and we just are trying to look for a solution so that we can offer what we offer to the community and we can keep ourselves working.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy. I mean, what does it mean financially for, I mean, a theater? You know, you don't have to use necessarily Tabard as the example, but to be shut down for what is it now? How many months? Almost 6 months?
Well,
Are we getting
it's
on?
more than 6 months now. Yeah.
Right.
Um,
To be closed that
so
long is crazy, right? As far as for a budget.
yeah,
how
I
do
mean, it's not just
theaters
crazy;
survive?
it's crippling. It's
Yeah.
absolutely crippling.
Yeah.
The first thing that we did when the shutdown happened, within a week or two, as the it became very apparent that this was going to last a while, that this wasn't going to be just a handful of days,
Right.
we reduced all overhead to the absolute bare minimum.
Yeah.
We informed our landlords that we were looking for some temporary rent relief.
Yeah.
We unfortunately had to let people that were not core staff members go.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, the only way that we were able to even keep core staff is because we did get some assistance, some relief through government programs like the PPP loans and
Right. Yeah.
EIDL loans and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, but ultimately, we had to look at everything and say we've got to cut our expenses to an absolute minimum because uh, you literally overnight the
Yeah.
income coming into the company went to zero.
Yeah.
It was, you can just look at you look at the bank records. It was like we were making, we don't make a lot of money, if a few
Sure.
$100s, if we made $1,000 on a day, that's like, wow, that was a really, really good day.
Yeah.
But it went from those kinds of numbers just down to absolutely zero.
Yeah. And then
We did
and then
risk,
you're looking at the next year's season as well, because this one's kind of passed, and then you have to figure out what you're going to do. So that's why you're trying to
yeah,
develop these new programs, right? I mean,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, first and foremost, we were still two shows away from completing the season that we were in the middle of. We
Yeah.
had Looking Over the President's Shoulder, which had just gone up, but we had planned to present Secret Garden. Both of those shows, those are shows that we had already sold tickets for.
Right.
So we had ticket holders. That's the little bit of money that we did have in the bank. We were like, do we have to give all this back now?
Right.
And
Yeah.
then comes, we would normally, and we had already announced what was going to be our 20th anniversary season, which is the season that we're about to start. Arsenic and Old Lace would be the first production of our 20th anniversary season. And now we can't sell season subscriptions or single tickets to that. Now,
Yeah.
we have been doing that, and we have seen a tremendous amount of goodwill coming to us. And the people that are the usual supporters of the organization
Right.
have
Yeah.
been absolutely fantastic, both donating money and then buying tickets for what I have up to this point been promising them would be delivered as live stream. And now
Yeah.
I'm looking at that. All of a sudden, I'm back to the same example that I was in March.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to look at those dollars and say, do we have to give these back, or do I have to, tuck my tail and go back to my subscribership and say, hey, are you willing to donate this money? Uh,
Right.
it's uh,
Yeah.
it's a difficult financial situation, and ultimately we're going to lose face with our constituency,
Yeah.
because this will now be the second major time that we've had to have said, hey, we have to change everything that we're doing, and you please don't ask for your money back. It's
Yeah. I
really
mean,
kind of a
I
nightmare
hope that,
situation.
I think, I feel like for a lot of people, there's an understanding, you know what I mean, of what's going on. And I think people have been pretty gracious, to kind of help out. And I hope that your
Oh, they really
community
have
would
been. I
do the
mean,
same.
absolutely
Yeah.
tremendously gracious and really, really generous. There's really, at this point, you asked earlier, how are we surviving this financially? It's a little bit because there's been some government support. Those things are not insignificant. It's
Yeah.
been a little bit about us trying to figure out how to keep the costs down, and to
Yeah.
really pull the belt as tight as possible. But the other side of it is absolutely the core constituency that we have reaching out and making donations, giving their ticket dollars back to us and not asking for anything in return. It's
Yeah.
been absolutely tremendous. And that's why I
Yeah.
was so much looking forward to being
Right.
able to provide something back to them. Is
Yeah.
say, hey, thank you so much for supporting us over the last 6 months. Here we go. Here's the
Yeah.
live stream that I've been saying that we're going to be able to provide. And now we're looking for a different way to make that happen.
Now, if you were to take the whole production and move it into a church, would that qualify? Is it just because your building is qualified, or is it because it's the actual activity? Do you know what I mean? That's kind of what I'm trying to figure out. I
I
mean,
believe that it's the activity is where we're going to
yeah.
get the hang up.
So no
That's what
matter
I
where you
really
go,
believe.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
so. I don't know that for sure. One of the first things that I did back when I was initially seeking this clarification from the county and the city is if we are going to if we're going to adopt the business model of being a live stream studio, and then how do I make that legitimate?
yeah,
Do I sign up for a new business license? Do
right,
I have
yeah,
to go and ask for a facility variance from the city? I've
right,
been in the arts and been a producer and a executive director of arts organizations for the last 20 years.
yeah,
I'm used to working with state, local legislation,
yeah,
working with our public officials to be able to make these kinds of things happen. So
yeah,
that was one of the frustrating things that has been going on over the last month, was just trying to get clear answers.
yeah,
So as I understand right now, the answer is no. Arts as people performing in front of even just cameras is just simply not allowed under the guidelines as they stand. And
yeah,
now I believe that our officials are going to try to help us find a way through this, but it's not happening very quickly. And
sure, yeah,
um, that's I think the big thing is, as things start to ease up and we are able to see the relaxing of these restrictions, we need to find a path back, and we need to do it quickly, because otherwise the arts is going to we're just going to see arts organizations starting to shut their doors. We've seen it in San Jose and in Santa Clara. Unfortunately, all too often in the last 10 years, we've watched
yeah,
organizations like San Jose Repertory Theater Company and
yeah,
American Musical Theater Company that have not been able to survive. And those are not during pandemic shutdowns.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, I appreciate your attitude. It sounds like you're really wanting to work, with the government, and I agree too. I think that they're going to try to do what they can, and it's all about relationships and everything, and they're trying to figure it out as they go forward too. But I appreciate you seem to, being trying to do whatever you can, and I'm always surprised at theaters the amount of actually legal aspect that's going on with theaters, from the rights of getting something to perform to the the unions that you have to work with. It's kind of a really what a legislated art form in some ways, right, to protect the actors and the writers and the producers. So you've kind of seen that you've had to work with that throughout your 20 years, I guess, with all those different
Oh,
aspects.
absolutely. And I've been aware of all this stuff my entire career. I started out as an actor myself, and I continue to be a card carrying member of the Actors Equity Association, the union for stage
Yeah,
actors. So I'm a big believer in the unionization of labor that
sure.
goes along with theaters.
Yeah,
But yeah, there's a tremendous amount of legislation that has to be dealt with, and an arts organization, as it stands, because of the the capitalist economic model that we
yeah,
live in inside of the United
yeah,
States, we operate as not-for-profit, public benefit organizations.
right.
And I don't think a lot of people really understand that. If you're going to a big Broadway show, if you're going to go and see Hamilton and pay $200 a ticket, then you're in a different world. But most local arts organizations, and I'm talking about the big dogs like American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco and Theater Works up the peninsula, as well as smaller organizations like Tabard Theater Company or City Lights Theater Company,
Yeah,
any of the companies that you would probably go and visit and support here in the Bay Area, these are all not-for-profit organizations. So that
yeah,
means that we rely on donations and public support,
yeah,
both from city, local, state governments, in order to be able to survive.
yeah,
Most arts organizations need about 50% or sometimes even more of the funding that allows them to operate and to provide these services for the public.
yeah,
Those monies come from either individual donations or corporate or government grants.
yeah,
So, because of that, yeah, we're highly regulated. We have to really dot all the i's, cross all the t's, and make sure that we are working as a with in trust with the public,
yeah,
right? So, I'm we have a great, tremendous show. I'm personally not going to see any kind of financial benefit from that. I work for that company. That company is a public organization,
yeah,
and yeah, we have to think about the people that work for us. We have to think about the writers who write the material
yeah,
and making
yeah,
sure that they're getting their fair share of what's being brought in, and then a lot of times the buildings and the performance spaces that we use are sometimes
yeah,
publicly held
yeah,
locations, things like that. So we're working with governments all the time,
yeah,
and we believe we bring a tremendous support to to our local folks. Not
yeah,
everybody is necessarily a live theater lover, but there's lots of different kinds of arts that you can engage in inside of the Silicon Valley. Personally, I love performing arts because it has a sense of community,
yeah,
because it's not right now because it's we are live streaming everything, but usually it's a group of people coming together in a room and actually interacting with one another, and then collectively experiencing that piece of art that's being put on the stage. And I think that's tremendously
yeah,
powerful and really good for the soul, and keeps
yeah.
us human and in contact with one another.
Well, it's so important, just the aspect of theater and storytelling, right? And then to be able to do that live is such a different thing than seeing something, in a performance on screen or something like that. It's a whole different kind of interaction. Now, so when you started out in theater even in high school, right? Is that kind of your entree into the art form, or
Oh,
was it
absolutely. No,
earlier than
I've
that?
been, I've, oh, even earlier than that. Now, not necessarily full length plays and that kind of thing, but I was in my first Christmas pageant when I was 5 years old, and
Were you
I've
Rudolph or
been doing.
something?
No, no, I was Joseph. Actually, I was
Okay.
Joseph in a very Christian centric Christmas pageant. But yeah, so the sort of the family legend, the family tale, is that I was a very hyperactive kid, and I used to bounce off the walls. And my mom came to see this little Christmas pageant, and the basically it just entailed all of us kids walking up one after another and basically creating a
Saying one
nativity
line.
scene in front of everybody, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And since I was Joseph and Mary walk onto the stage first, and we stood like basically creating this tableau.
yeah.
And my mom said that I stood perfectly still for 20 minutes straight, and she thought, okay, there's
It's a
something to
miracle.
this.
It's
Yeah,
a
this
miracle of
kid needs
Christmas.
to do this.
Yeah. So
So
then, yeah, when do you think you got the bug then for theater and for acting and
oh,
everything?
definitely by the time I was in high school, I knew that this was my career path, that this is what I wanted to do for a living, and I took it very seriously from that time on.
Oh yeah.
I started to try to find training right away. I went to the Summer Training Congress at American Conservatory Theater right out of high school. A year or so later, I went and got my degree from California Institute of the Arts down in Valencia and Los Angeles. And so, yeah, I've been um, thinking of this as a profession and wanting to do this professionally pretty much my whole adult life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, Joining the union back in my 20s and founded a theater company in Sacramento.
Yeah.
Myself, my now ex-wife, and a third partner created Capital Stage Company in Sacramento,
Yeah.
which we grew from about $250,000 arts organization to a $1.2 million arts organization in the first 10 years of its existence. It still operates up there and is a valuable part of the arts fabric up there in Sacramento.
Yeah. That's
Very, very
great.
proud of what we were able to do there.
Yeah.
And then about 5 years ago, I left that. We put that into new leadership up there and moved on. And I moved back to the Bay Area where I was born and raised in this neck of the woods. Moved back in this area to be close to my family as my mom passed away just a few years ago. And I wanted to be here to help with that transition in my family,
Yeah.
and then ended up applying for this position with Tabard Theater Company and got selected. I'm very, very happy to, very honored to have the support of the board of directors and the
Yeah.
founder, Kathy Cassetta. Now I'm kind of back home.
Right.
Working at a theater that actually 20 something years ago, before I went up to Sacramento, I worked on this stage before it was even the Tabard Theater Company. Gary DiMattei started an arts organization called Theater on San Pedro Square
Oh,
back
okay.
in the 90s.
Yeah.
And I was on stage at this particular theater, the actual physical venue, even back then. It's sort of a nice full circle. It was one of the locations that I started early on in my career as an actor, and now I've come back and I'm the leader of the arts organization that's resident there at that company now.
Yeah. How do you make the transition then from being actor to executive director? What's some of the leadings in your life that caused that? Was it because the difficulty of making a living as an actor, or is it?
um, no, not exactly. I would say that more it had to do with that. I think of it as more of a sort of a natural evolution
Yeah.
that went from me being starting out as an actor, but as my sort of view of the art form began to broaden, I moved from actor to director,
Okay.
director and designer, and
Hmm.
then eventually, sort of the natural evolution of that was to become a producer.
Yeah.
I think about it in terms of sort of growing my understanding of the art form and my commitment to the art form. So and it's a little bit, to be honest, I think of it as a little bit of shedding the ego. When you
Okay.
first start out as an actor, it's very sort of you're doing that. It's the attention is all on you.
Yeah.
You get the applause at the end. When you start becoming a director, you kind of start removing yourself from that, and you start looking at the big picture. When you become a producer, you start looking at it even a larger level. Now we're talking,
Yeah.
what are we providing to our audience, to our constituency, on a year by year basis, not even just on the totality of the production.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. So then, as the executive artistic director, what is your role? What's some of the things that you do other than have Zoom calls with the county?
Well, right now I feel like too large of a part of my job is having Zoom calls with the county.
Yeah.
But no, so the executive artistic director, which is the position that I have, you've got artistic leadership and then you've got executive leadership, and with a smaller arts organization, very often you find that those two things are combined.
Yeah.
So what that means is that as the artistic leader, I'm looking at how a season is planned. I'm looking at what are the aesthetic and what kind of art are we putting up on the stage and providing for our constituency.
Yeah.
As the executive director, I am looking at how does the business run? How do we make sure that we, keep to budgets? How do we make sure that we're able to fundraise the additional dollars above and beyond ticket sales?
Yeah.
So really, it's looking at the whole business, and it's the business of show, as they say, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
So it's looking at that and I think it's important. It's always been important to me to have those two things go hand in hand.
Yeah.
If it's just an arts organization that operates as a business, it's hollow. It doesn't have a soul.
Right.
But if it's an arts organization that doesn't, it's not fiscally responsible, it's just not going to be around very long.
Right. Yeah.
So
Totally.
making sure that you have that, there's kind of a tension there, if you will, right? There's
Yeah.
a pull back and forth between wanting to do things that have artistic relevance, but also needing to know that you're doing things that are financially responsible.
Yeah. Yeah. Got to put butts in seat still, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
What would you say then for, and you probably kind of had thought about this, um, coming into the position, but what would you say, uh, historically, but then also too for the future, what would you see as Tabard's theater's voice, or what would you say that the flavor that you were looking to bring or you wanted to continue to bring here to the South Bay with the theater?
I think that art's in the best possible world. Is really here to have ourselves ask questions about what our human experience is all about. What does it mean to be a human being and experiencing life on this planet? Sometimes that is as simple as enjoying a good comedy and a good laugh with the people in the theater.
Hmm.
But I'm also hoping that that is also looking at some of the difficulties, the social difficulties that we face, and responding to the environment around us. And I like to keep it on a human level.
Okay.
Right now, for example, there's so many things to talk about right now as far as what's going on inside of the
Yeah.
United States, but just simply to look at the Black Lives Matter movement and to
Yeah.
look at the voices of the BIPOC community and the folks that are have been historically underrepresented or
Hmm.
even just seriously mistreated inside of our society, and ask ourselves why. How did we get here?
Yeah.
What can we do to make this better, make it more equitable, more fair for all individuals?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, those kinds of stories are powerful and they're important, uh, and they need to be told.
Yeah.
Um, I striking the balance of being able to do that. I'm very aware that I'm a middle aged white guy.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily represent those people. There's all sorts of different multicultural, wonderful folks and different points of view here in the Silicon Valley. So what I'm really looking at as we start to develop the new season, really, I think that
Yeah.
this will manifest mostly when I get to season 21, which
Yeah.
will hopefully be through COVID and
Right.
maybe as we start to return back to the theater, is both having a equal representation of these kinds of stories and voices and representation on the stage, but also inviting other cultures to come in and use our facility and tell stories in their way.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
I think that that can be tremendously powerful for our more sort of standard audience, so that they've got exposure to a broader cultural, just a deeper cultural experience,
Yeah.
but also giving opportunities for people to actually have their voice on the stage. It might be a little bit idealistic and it might take us a little while to get there, but that's, I think, what we are going to really push towards at Tabard.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. What about you, Jonathan? What would you say is your kind of like mission in life, or your call, or your direction, focus?
That's to tell interesting stories. Absolutely. I've been a
Cool.
storyteller all my life.
Yeah.
And I, I I used to think of it actually as stories, and
Hmm.
now that's even evolving for me. Now
Oh yeah.
it's presenting conversations.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that's important about theater as opposed to, like, say, film or television. Um, there's no escaping the idea that film and television is kind of a one-way street. You sit and you receive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the same type of thing happens when you go and you sit in the theater, but you are part of the experience as as an audience member. And any
Yeah.
actor, any stage actor will tell you that everything changes once an audience is there in the room.
Sure. And different nights,
Um,
different audiences bring a different feel
Absolutely.
too. Yeah.
Different energy, something different happens. You go and see a show on a Friday night, you go back 2 weeks later on a Sunday afternoon, you see a different show. And not
Yeah.
completely different, obviously, but it's going to change. Every individual performance is unique.
Yeah.
And if you put that together with the idea of creating conversations, being able to represent different points of view on the stage,
Yeah.
then you arrive at that level of conversation that I'm talking about.
That's
That to
great.
me is sort of the greatest thing that theater can bring, and that is very much what drives me, what makes me want to continue to do this art form, and makes me excited about overcoming these challenges and bringing it back here in Santa Clara.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. Yeah, just the communication is that it's that connection, with ideas and thoughts and
Yes,
people, and it's the human experience, right? Well, I
absolutely.
appreciate you, and I look forward to meeting you in person someday. I imagine that'll happen.
I sure
uh,
hope so.
yeah,
Absolutely, sooner rather
and
than later.
and I look forward to hearing what's how the county gives you a green light to do the performances coming up. That would be really great. And you have a great,
Well, I'll definitely stay in touch and let you know what the next steps for Tabard are.
yeah,
We are going to find a way to make sure that this show gets out into the world. We're not
yeah,
exactly sure what that is right now, but we're going to
yeah,
keep working with our local officials and folks like former Mayor Tom McHenry,
yeah,
and find a way to get this out there.
yeah. He has a love for. He wrote a play actually that was supposed to open up on March 17th. It was St. Patrick's Day, which was the
Yes,
day that they gave the shelter in place order.
yes.
Yeah, it was going to be at
Yeah,
three
with
below.
Three Below, with those
Yeah,
folks over there. Yeah.
yeah, that's crazy.
Yes, very aware of that. And hopefully, if we're able to create this live streaming studio, organizations like Three Below,
Yeah,
people that had plays that were ready to go, I would
yeah,
love to open up our stage and have them come over and do a live stream version, and be able to
yeah.
present in that way. We're making this investment, not just for ourselves, but for other arts organizations.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, and keep on fighting the good fight for theater. Oh, I did want to ask you one question. Are you a triple threat? Are you a singer, dancer, and performer, actor?
No, no, no. I'm like a two
True.
minus. I can act, and at least people tell me I can. I can sing on a good day, but yeah, try to get me to dance anything, and you'll throw me out the door. No good
So
at
it's
that
it's
part
still
at
you're
all.
still doing Joseph. You're standing still for the.
Yes,
that's your
absolutely,
that's your part. Well, cool. Well, thank you, Jonathan. I really appreciate you taking time for this conversation, and we definitely want to hear, what's going on next, and so we'll keep in touch. Yeah,
absolutely. I'll keep you in touch and let you know what happens.
yeah.
And thanks for
Thank.
having me on. I really appreciate it.
Sure, no problem. Thank you. Find out more about the Tabard Theater by going to their website at tabardtheater.org. Also consider making a contribution by going to their website, tabardtheater.org/donate. Theaters can really use your help during this time. In addition to publishing Content Magazine, SV Creates has seminars and workshops to help the local artist community be equipped for their work. From time to time, we'll be checking in with Alyssa to see what's going on with SV Creates. Alyssa, how you doing?
Hi, Daniel. I'm great. I wanted to tell you about our upcoming workshop with Nina Simon. Nina is the author of The Art of Relevance, former director of the Santa Cruz Museum of Art and History, and founder of the Of, By, For All Network. She will join us on September 23rd to talk about what relevance looks like in the post-COVID era and share concrete strategies to help your team revision your organization and your relationship with the communities that matter most to your future. You can visit svcreates.org, our website, for a link to register.
Sounds good. Thanks, Alyssa. Thank you for listening to the Content Magazine podcast. Follow us on social media at Content Mag. Visit our website to become a member and help us to continue to tell the stories of the local creatives. This episode's music is Time Alone by Mild Monk. Follow him on Spotify and also on his Instagram at Mild Monk Music.